Hello everyone. Today we'll talk about how Libya has never been and is unlikely to become, in the foreseeable future, one of the countries with its own automotive industry. However, this country is almost the only one in the world that attempted to create its own automotive sector, not by purchasing a license or developing a pickup truck or budget car suitable for local conditions, but by aiming straight for a premium sedan. The car as a symbol of technical independence in the mid-20th century. After the collapse of the colonial system, many newly formed countries sought to demonstrate their independence not just in words but in deeds. They established systems of government, armed forces, and their own financial systems, and then tried to break free from economic dependence on the industrially developed countries their former rulers. Even at the beginning of the century, it was known that the automotive industry could be a powerful driver of economic growth, pulling other industrial sectors along with it. It is no secret that countries like the United States, Japan, Germany, the United Kingdom, France, and later South Korea became global industrial leaders largely thanks to their automotive industries. Modern China also owes much of its success to the development of its automotive sector. This is why many former colonies, which in the 50s and 70s were positioned as developing countries, rushed to acquire their own national car, showing their former overlords that they could exist and develop perfectly well without their tutelage. Jumping ahead, it's worth noting that in the vast majority of cases, the creation of a domestic car in many countries ended, if not in complete failure, then certainly not in the result they had hoped for. Just recall cars like the Egyptian Ramses and the Kenyan Nile Pioneer. Even the first Indian car, the Hindustan Ambassador, was a licensed copy of the British Morris Oxford. A similar story unfolded in Iran, where in 1967, production began on the Pagan sedan, which was originally the British Roots Aero. So, no matter how hard the developing countries tried to achieve industrial independence, they couldn't do it without the help of American and European automakers. The Libyan Rocket from the early 70s, Libya, led by Muammar Gaddafi, who modestly referred to himself as the brotherly leader, became one of the most ambitious countries in the world. Gaddafi's reputation was and remains highly controversial. In this context, what's important is that the colonel was a significant figure who radically transformed Libya and attempted to change the Arab world as well. Throughout his life, he condemned the West for its neo-colonial tendencies, tried to befriend the USSR, but always adhered to a third way, genuinely believing that there was a unique path of development. In other words, for many years, Gaddafi tried to sit on two chairs, maneuvering between capitalism and socialism, while creating an unprecedented social system known as the el-Jamahiriya. This is why the first Libyan car was named Saroukh el-Jamahiriya, which translates to the Libyan Rocket. The name was explained by the director of Ladaco, Tukali al-Maghraf. While other countries produce rockets to kill people, Libya will produce cars that save lives. It was Ladaco, Libyan Arab Domestic Investment Co., that was tasked with developing and later producing the car, the concept of which, according to al-Maghraf, was personally thought over by the brotherly leader Gaddafi, who spent many hours of his precious time on it. As a result of these long deliberations, Saroukh el-Jamahiriya received a number of original and unusual features, which led Ladaco representatives to call it the safest car in the world. Libyan specifics. Muammar Gaddafi, by his own admission, was deeply troubled by the fact that thousands of Libyan citizens died annually in road accidents, lives that the brotherly leader considered priceless. This is why he spent a lot of time thinking about how to make the car as safe as possible. As a result, it was decided to make the front and rear of the car pointed so that in the event of a head-on or rear collision, the car would ricochet. At the same time, traditional crumple zones were not forgotten. Additionally, the car was supposed to have special tires that would allow it to travel several dozen kilometers after a puncture. In Libya, many roads pass through sparsely populated desert areas, and Libyan drivers often had to wait for hours on the side of the road for help after a flat tire. Saroukh el-Jamahiriya was initially supposed to have a high level of localization. While the engine and transmission would likely have to be borrowed from Western partners in the foreseeable future, as Libyan engineers were unlikely to develop them on their own, everything else could be produced locally. For example, the interior was to be finished with leather and wood inserts made in Libya, as well as marble mined near Tripoli. It took Ladico 2 years to develop and build the first prototype of Saroukh el-Jamahiriya, and in September 1999, on the 30th anniversary of the September 1st revolution, which brought Colonel Gaddafi to power, the car was unveiled to the public. Not just to any public, but to numerous representatives of the Organization of African Unity, who had gathered in Tripoli for a summit. Painted in the popular Islamic green, Saroukh el-Jamahiriya was presented to the summit participants as the first Arab premium class car and the first car of its class designed and manufactured in Africa. The car's specifications were not disclosed, but Ladico announced plans to build a factory in Tripoli with a capacity of 50,000 cars per year. At the time, in 1999, few doubted the realization of these plans. Everyone knew that the project of the first Libyan car was Gaddafi's initiative, and when he set his mind to something, he saw it through to the end. Just recall the Great Man-Made River, another of Gaddafi's projects that made it into the Guinness Book of Records. If he could handle such a grand project, what was a car factory, especially one designed for just one model? But unexpectedly, the birth of the first Libyan car stalled for a full 10 years. The Libyan Rocket 2. After its debut in September 1999, Saroukh el-Jamahiriya disappeared from the view of automotive journalists for a whole decade. Everyone began to forget about it, until suddenly in 2009, it was presented again in Tripoli, this time almost as a pre-production model. In principle, there's nothing unusual about long development times for a car, especially considering that Saroukh el-Jamahiriya was being developed in Libya, a country with absolutely no experience in car manufacturing. It seems that the inability to create a proper car on their own forced the Libyans to turn to the Turin-based engineering firm Tesco Go, which refined the initial design of the Libyan Rocket and produced a second prototype, unveiled in 2009. This time, some information about the car was made available to journalists. The car was 5,500 millimeters long, 1,870 millimeters wide, and under the hood was a 3-liter gasoline 6-cylinder engine producing 230 horsepower, paired with an automatic transmission. The car's weight was not disclosed, but it was claimed that the Libyan Rocket could reach 100 kilometers per hour in 7 seconds. Since it was announced that Saroukh el-Jamahiriya would be sold not only in Arab countries but also in Europe, for €50,000, the engineers at Tesco Go likely modified the design to meet European safety standards. This is why the exterior of the second prototype differed slightly from its 1999 predecessor. Number victims of the Arab Spring. Some journalists claimed that Gaddafi paid €2 million for the development of the second prototype and that Saroukh el-Jamahiriya would be produced not in Tripoli but in Turin with the support of Tesco. Moreover, it was supposed to be available not only in a gasoline version but also as an electric car. How true this was no one can say now. In 2010, a series of uprisings, military mutinies, and coups swept across several Arab countries in North Africa and the Middle East, collectively known as the Arab Spring. Libya was no exception, and in early 2011, unrest broke out, followed by a civil war in which NATO countries openly participated. This led to the defeat of government forces and the killing of Muammar Gaddafi in October 2011. In the context of the country's virtual collapse, no one remembered the Saroukh el-Jamahiriya project. What happened to the prototypes is unknown. They were likely destroyed either during the fighting or after Gaddafi's death. As is known, the victors destroyed everything associated with the brotherly leader, so the chances of the two Saroukh el-Jamahiriya surviving were slim. After Gaddafi's death, the armed conflict in Libya continued for several more years, and today the country, no longer called the Jamahiriya, does not exist as a unified entity. Moreover, its development has been set back by decades, so if a Libyan automotive industry ever emerges, it won't be anytime soon. Although Libya did manage to create its first car, even if it never went into production, a quarter of a century ago. This brings our story to an end. Please like this post for the effort and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new interesting stories about cars from around the world.